The lock on our bedroom door had been sticking for 3 weeks. At 2 in the morning, with a Phillips head screwdriver in one hand and my phone's flashlight in the other, I finally decided to fix the damn thing. Security being a myth anyway, at least in this house. I'd been an investigator for 12 years before I opened the boxing gym. Corporate fraud, mostly. Insurance scams, embezzlement, the occasional cheating spouse case that paid well enough to ignore the moral complexity. You learn to spot patterns, inconsistencies, the small lies that reveal bigger truths. The screws came out easier than expected. Too easy. Someone had loosened them recently. That's when I noticed Dalia's phone on the bathroom counter, screen up, unlocked. She never left it unlocked. Never left it anywhere I could reach it. But there it was, glowing like a confession in the dark. I should have walked away. Should have finished the lock repair and gone back to bed. Should have trusted my wife of 15 years. Instead, I picked up the phone. The text thread was right there on the screen. Zane Merrinor, her college boyfriend, the one she claimed to have lost touch with years ago. I miss what we had. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. 23 minutes ago. While I was downstairs fixing locks, she was upstairs missing another man. I scrolled up. Months of messages. Photos I didn't want to see but couldn't stop looking at. Timestamps that aligned perfectly with my business trips to Atlanta, Denver, Phoenix. Every time I'd been building our future, she'd been rebuilding her past. Thursday was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your hands. The hotel room felt like home, more than my actual home ever has. Asher suspects nothing. He's too busy with that stupid gym. That stupid gym. The one I'd bought after cashing out my 401k. The one that was finally turning a profit after 2 years of 18-hour days. The one that gave kids from broken homes a place to learn discipline and self-respect. My hands were steady as I took screenshots. 12 years of investigating fraud had taught me to document everything before the evidence disappeared. I forwarded each image to a burner email account I'd set up for gym business, then deleted the forwarded messages from her sent folder. The phone went back on the counter exactly where I'd found it. Screen down this time. I finished the lock repair in silence. The screws went back in tight. Real tight. By 3 a.m., I was sitting in my home office with a cup of coffee and a legal pad, planning the most important investigation of my career. The target? My own marriage. The objective? Total exposure and complete victory. Dalia appeared in the doorway at 6:15, already dressed for work in her sharp gray suit. She looked beautiful, as always, polished, professional, lying through her perfect teeth. "You're up early," she said, pouring coffee from the pot I'd made an hour ago. "Couldn't sleep. Lock was bothering me." "Did you fix it?" "Oh yeah, it's secure now." She kissed my cheek before leaving. The same kiss she'd given me every morning for 15 years. It felt different now, hollow, like everything else in our perfectly decorated suburban home. I waited until her BMW disappeared around the corner, then made my first call. Chloe Mitchell Law Office. "Chloe, it's Asher Trevan. I need to see you today. It's urgent." Chloe had been my attorney since the gym purchase. Sharp, unflappable, and expensive enough to be worth every penny. What kind of urgent? The kind that ends marriages. An hour later, I was sitting across from Chloe in her downtown office, sliding a folder across her mahogany desk. She opened it and studied the printed screenshots without expression. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "Based on the messages? 6 months? Maybe longer." "Any joint assets I should know about?" "House, 2 cars, business, retirement accounts. Standard middle-class portfolio." "Kids?" "Emma, 17, senior year." Chloe made notes on a yellow pad. "I'll need a forensic accountant to trace any unusual spending. Affairs cost money, hotels, gifts, restaurant meals. If she's been funding this relationship with marital assets, we can recover damages." "Already on it. I called Morrison Forensic Accounting this morning. They're starting tomorrow." She looked up from her notes. "You work fast." "I had good training." "What's your endgame here, Asher? Quick settlement? Custody fight? Public humiliation?" I thought about that question for a long moment. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? Or just the truth, finally exposed to daylight? I want her to understand what she's lost. I want him to understand what he's stolen. And I want everyone who thinks they know us to see who we really are. That's a dangerous game. I've been playing it professionally for 12 years. This time it's personal. The forensic accountant called that afternoon. Janet Morrison had been tracking financial fraud longer than I'd been investigating it. Her voice was crisp, efficient, and mildly amused. "Your wife's been busy, Mr. Trevan. $40,000 transferred to her sister's account over the past 6 months. Small amounts, never more than $3,000 at a time, designed to avoid automatic bank reporting. Her sister lives in Portland. They haven't spoken in 2 years. The money didn't stay in the sister's account. It was withdrawn in cash within hours of each transfer, then deposited into an account belonging to Zane Merrinor. He's been using it to fund a restaurant venture called Nostalgia. Fitting name, don't you think? $40,000. Our vacation fund, Emma's college savings, the emergency money I'd insisted we keep for the gym's slow seasons. How long until you have a complete report? 2 days. But I can tell you right now, this is going to be ugly. Your wife's been very careful, but not careful enough. She left a trail. Everyone leaves a trail. That was the first lesson I'd learned in fraud investigation. People think they're smarter than the system, but the system always wins. Bank records, phone logs, credit card statements, GPS data from smartphones, everything creates evidence. I spent the evening researching Zane Merrinor. Social media made it easy. Failed entrepreneur, divorced 3 years ago, currently living in a downtown loft that costs more than most people's annual salary. His restaurant had been hemorrhaging money since opening day. Poor location, overpriced menu, terrible reviews. My wife had been funding his failures with our future. That night, Dalia came home late. Again. She claimed to have been working on a project deadline, but her laptop bag looked suspiciously light. She went straight to the shower without kissing me hello. I sat in the living room, listening to the water run upstairs, planning my next move. The evidence was solid. The financial trail was clear. The legal framework was in place. Now I needed to set the trap. I pulled out my phone and opened a new text message. Not to Dalia, to myself, from her phone, which was charging on the kitchen counter. I walked upstairs quietly. The shower was still running. Her phone was exactly where she'd left it, unlocked again. Careless, arrogant, fatal. I scrolled to her conversation with Zane and typed a new message. Come over tomorrow night. He's flying to Chicago for business. We'll have the whole house. I hit send, then deleted the message from her sent folder. By the time she got out of the shower, the phone was back on the counter and I was in bed, pretending to read a book about business management. How was your day? She asked, toweling her hair dry. Productive. I booked a trip to Chicago tomorrow. Potential investor wants to meet about expanding the gym. She tried to look disappointed, but I caught the flash of excitement in her eyes. How long will you be gone? Just overnight. I'll catch the morning flight, meet with the investor, fly back Thursday. I'll miss you, she lied. I'll miss you too, I lied back. The next morning, I made a show of packing my overnight bag. Dalia helped me choose a tie, kissed me goodbye at the door, and promised to pick me up at the airport Thursday evening. I drove to the airport, parked in long-term parking, and took the shuttle to the terminal. I checked in for the flight, went through security, and walked to my gate. When boarding began, I stayed in my seat. At 6 p.m., I was back home, parked in the garage with the door closed. I'd installed a small security camera in the foyer that morning, hidden behind a picture frame. The audio recorder went in the living room credenza, behind some old photo albums Dalia never touched. By 7 p.m., I was positioned in my home office with a clear view of the driveway, a thermos of coffee, and a folder full of divorce papers. At 9:47 p.m., Zane Merrinor pulled into my driveway. I watched him check his appearance in the rearview mirror, grab a bottle of wine from the passenger seat, and walk to my front door with the confidence of a man who believed he was about to get away with something. The doorbell rang. I let it ring twice more before answering. When I opened the door, Zane's smile died instantly. The wine bottle slipped from his fingers and shattered on the porch. Hello, Zane, I said, holding up the divorce papers. Dalia's upstairs packing. You can help carry boxes. Zane stood frozen on my porch, wine pooling around his expensive shoes, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Behind him, his BMW sat in my driveway with the engine still running, as if some part of his brain had known this might be a trap. Asher, he finally managed. I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain $40,000 of my money funding your failing restaurant. Or maybe you'd prefer to explain these. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots. His face went white. Where is she? He asked. Upstairs. Probably wondering why you're taking so long to sweep her off her feet. I stepped aside and gestured toward the staircase. Go ahead. This is your moment. The big romantic reunion. Don't let me stop you. He didn't move. Smart man. Coward, but smart. Dalia, I called upstairs. Your prince is here. Footsteps on the hardwood above. She appeared at the top of the stairs in a black dress I'd never seen before, Her hair styled differently, makeup perfect. She'd dressed for him, in our house, on our anniversary week. The look on her face when she saw us both standing there was worth every sleepless hour I'd spent planning this moment. Shock, terror, and something that might have been relief all crashed together in her expression. Asher? You're supposed to be in Chicago. Funny thing about that trip, it never existed. She came down the stairs slowly, each step careful and deliberate, buying time to think, to calculate, to figure out how much I knew and how much damage she could still control. We need to talk, she said. We do, all three of us. Come on in, Zane. Don't be shy. You've been making yourself at home for months. He stepped inside reluctantly, leaving the door open behind him. Escape route. I closed it firmly and turned the deadbolt. The sound echoed through the foyer. Living room, I said. Everyone sit. Dalia took her usual spot on the couch. Zane remained standing near the door, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I sat in my recliner, the same chair where I'd watched football games and helped Emma with homework and planned our family vacations. So, I said, opening the folder of divorce papers, let's start with the basics. How long has this been going on? Silence. Come on, don't be shy now. You two have been very chatty over text. Thursday was incredible. I can't stop thinking about your hands. Ring any bells? Dalia's composure cracked. How did you... Your phone. You left it unlocked Tuesday night. Very careless for someone running a covert operation. You had no right to look through my private messages. I laughed. Actually laughed. Private messages? Dalia, you used our joint bank account to fund his restaurant. You used our bed to entertain him while I was working. You used our daughter's college money to subsidize your midlife crisis. Nothing about this has been private. Zane finally found his voice. Look, man, I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? Just the emotional affair, just the financial fraud. Help me understand where you plan to draw the line. It's not fraud. She gave me the money. She gave you stolen money. Money that belonged to both of us. Money earmarked for our family's future. I pulled out the forensic accountant's report and dropped it on the coffee table. $40,000 over 6 months, transferred through her sister's account to avoid detection, used to prop up your failing business while my wife told me we couldn't afford a family vacation. Dalia stood up abruptly. I want you to leave, Zane. Sit down, I said quietly. We're not finished. You don't get to order me around in my own house. Your house. Check the deed, Dalia. Check the mortgage payments, or check who's been funding this dream home while you were funding his nightmare restaurant. She sat down. I opened the divorce papers and began reading. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds, adultery, and financial misconduct. Petitioner seeks full recovery of misappropriated marital assets, plus damages. Petitioner seeks primary custody of minor child based on respondent's demonstrated pattern of deception and financial irresponsibility. You can't take Emma from me. I can try. Judges tend to frown on mothers who steal their children's college funds to support extramarital affairs. Zane moved toward the door. I should go? No, you should stay. We haven't discussed your part in this yet. He stopped. My part? Accepting stolen money, participating in financial fraud, alienation of affection. I'm sure my attorney can think of a few more charges. I didn't know the money was stolen. You knew she was married. You knew the money was coming from joint accounts. You chose not to ask questions because you needed the cash more than you needed a clear conscience. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at his BMW. Nice car. Lease or purchase. What does that matter? Just wondering how you afforded it on a failed restaurant owner's income. Oh, wait, I know. My wife's been subsidizing your lifestyle. Dalia was crying now. Real tears, not the calculated kind she used when she wanted something. Asher, please, can we talk about this privately? We've had 15 years to talk privately. You chose to talk to him instead. I walked back to my chair and picked up another document. Financial affidavit. Every transaction, every transfer, every lie documented in black and white. Your signature on every withdrawal authorization, your fingerprints on every piece of evidence. What do you want? Zane asked. I want you to understand what you've done. Both of you. You didn't just have an affair. You didn't just break up a marriage. You stole from my family. You lied to my daughter. You made me complicit in your deception every time I trusted my wife's word. I pulled out my phone and showed them the hidden camera footage from tonight. You came to my house to sleep with my wife in my bed with my money. You brought wine to celebrate your victory over the stupid husband who suspected nothing. Dalia's tears were flowing freely now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you got caught. Sorry the plan failed, sorry you have to face consequences, but not sorry you did it. That's not true. Isn't it? When did you plan to tell me? After you'd drained our accounts? After you'd moved him into our house? After Emma graduated and you didn't need my financial support anymore? She didn't answer because we all knew the answer. Never. She would have kept lying until there was nothing left to steal. I turned to Zane. Your restaurant's failing. Your investors are pulling out. Your lease is up for renewal in 3 months and you can't make the payments. You needed her money more than you wanted her. His face confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't a love story. It was a business transaction disguised as romance. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. Zane, you're going to leave my house and never come back. You're going to repay every penny of the money you took with interest. You're going to stay away from my wife and my family. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. Your investors, your customers, your family, your ex-wife, who's probably wondering why her alimony payments have been late. I'll destroy what's left of your reputation and your business. He looked at Dalia, waiting for her to defend him, to choose him, to make the sacrifice worthwhile. She stared at her hands. Dalia, he said. She looked up at him with empty eyes. You should go. That's it? After everything we've shared? After everything we've stolen, I corrected. Yes, that's it. He walked to the door, then turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is, I said. It's been over since the moment you decided to steal from my family. You just didn't know it yet. I followed him to the door and watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the darkness. When I turned around, Dalia was standing in the living room doorway, her perfect makeup ruined by tears. What happens now? She asked. I handed her the divorce papers. Now you sign these, tonight. I need time to think, to get my own lawyer. You've had 6 months to think. You've had 6 months to make better choices. Time's up. She took the papers with shaking hands. What about Emma? What about her? She doesn't need to know about this. I almost laughed again. She's 17, not 7. She's going to figure it out when you're not living here anymore. You're throwing me out? I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers and leave voluntarily, or I'll file them tomorrow and let the court decide who gets thrown out. She sat down at the kitchen table and read through the documents. I watched her face change as she realized how thoroughly I'd prepared. Asset division, custody arrangements, financial penalties, confidentiality clauses, everything designed to protect Emma and me while holding her accountable for her choices. This is vindictive, she said. This is justice. You're taking everything. I'm taking back what you stole. The house stays with me and Emma. The retirement accounts get divided equally minus the $40,000 you gave to your boyfriend. You keep your car and your personal belongings. What am I supposed to live on? Your job, your salary, the same things most divorced women live on. She picked up the pen, then put it down again. I loved you once. Once. Past tense. That's the most honest thing you've said all night. I still love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provided. You love the lifestyle I funded. You love the idea of having me as a safety net while you explored other options. But you don't love me. She signed the papers. I witnessed her signature, then made copies on the kitchen printer. The original went into an overnight envelope addressed to Chloe's office. Pack a bag, I said. You can stay in a hotel tonight. We'll arrange a time for you to get the rest of your things. This is my home, too? Not anymore. She went upstairs and I heard drawers opening, hangers sliding, suitcase wheels rolling across hardwood. 20 minutes later, she came back down with 2 large bags and her laptop case. Where will you go? I asked. Hotel? Then I'll find an apartment. Not with him. She looked surprised. What? The confidentiality clause. You can't cohabitate with Zane Merrinor for 2 years. Violation means you forfeit any claim to spousal support. You can't control who I live with. I can if you want to keep receiving money from me. She wheeled her bags to the door, then turned back one last time. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, but I'm free. After she left, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and the signed divorce papers, listening to the house settle around me. 15 years of marriage ended in a single evening. 15 years of trust destroyed by 6 months of lies. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The house felt different without Dalia's presence. Not empty exactly, but cleaner somehow. Like removing a splinter you didn't realize was infected until the pain stopped. I called Emma at 7 a.m. before school. She was staying at her friend Madison's house for the week, studying for finals. At least, that's what she'd told us. Now I wondered if she'd known something was wrong and had simply chosen to avoid the explosion. Dad, is everything okay? I need to talk to you. Can you come home after school? Is Mom okay? Your mother is fine. We just need to have a family conversation. That sounds ominous. It's important, Emma. Please. She agreed to come home at 4. That gave me 9 hours to figure out how to explain to my 17-year-old daughter that her mother was a liar and a thief without destroying her ability to trust anyone ever again. I spent the morning at the gym, working out my frustration on the heavy bag. The rhythmic impact of leather against leather helped clear my head. Vic Morrison, my business partner and head trainer, found me there at 10. You look like hell, he said. Feel worse. Want to talk about it? Vic had been training fighters for 30 years. He'd seen everything: addiction, domestic violence, financial ruin, family breakdown. Nothing shocked him anymore. Dalia and I are getting divorced. He nodded like he'd been expecting it. How long have you known? Known what? That she was cheating. I stopped hitting the bag. You knew? I suspected. She stopped coming to your fights 6 months ago. Stopped asking about the gym. Started dressing different when she picked you up. The signs were there if you knew how to read them. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have believed me? Probably not. I would have defended her, made excuses, found reasons to doubt his observations. People see what they want to see, especially when the truth is too painful to accept. Who is he? Vic asked. Her college boyfriend. She's been funding his failing restaurant with our money. Vic whistled low. That's cold. $40,000 over 6 months. Damn, you getting it back? I'm trying. We worked out in silence for another hour. Physical exertion helped, but it didn't solve anything. When I got home, there was a message from Chloe on my answering machine. Papers filed. She's got 30 days to respond, but since she signed voluntarily, it should be straightforward. Call me. I called her back immediately. Any word from her attorney? I asked. She doesn't have one yet. She called this morning asking for a referral. I gave her 3 names, all competent but not aggressive enough to cause problems. What's next? We wait. The court will schedule a hearing in 60 to 90 days. With her signature on the voluntary dissolution, it's mostly a formality. What about the money? That's trickier. We'll need to prove the transfers were made without your knowledge or consent. The forensic accountant's report helps, but we'll need more evidence. I've got 6 months of bank statements showing she handled all the transfers. I never signed anything. That should be sufficient. I'll start preparing the financial recovery claim. Emma came home at 4:15, dropping her backpack by the front door and heading straight to the kitchen for her usual after-school snack. She looked so much like her mother at that age. Dark hair, serious eyes, the kind of natural beauty that would cause her problems in college if she wasn't careful. Where's Mom? She asked, looking around the empty house. Sit down, Emma. We need to talk. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Dalia had signed the divorce papers 12 hours earlier. Your mother and I are getting divorced, I said. Emma didn't look surprised. I figured something was wrong. You've both been acting weird for weeks. How much do you know? About what? About why we're getting divorced, she shrugged. I assumed you grew apart. That's what happens to most parents. I made a decision in that moment. Emma was 17, not 7. She deserved the truth, or at least a version of it that wouldn't destroy her faith in human nature. Your mother has been having an affair, I said. Emma's face went very still. For how long? 6 months that I know of. Maybe longer. With who? Someone from her past. It doesn't matter who. She was quiet for a long time, processing the information. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but sad. Are you okay? I'm hurt. I'm angry. But I'll be okay. Is she okay? She's staying in a hotel until she finds an apartment. She's fine. What about me? You'll live here with me. You can see your mother whenever you want, but this will be your primary residence. What about college? This was the hard part, the part that made me hate Dalia more than the affair itself. We need to talk about that. Your college fund has been compromised. What does that mean? Your mother used some of that money for other purposes. We're trying to get it back, but it might affect how much we can afford for tuition. Emma's composure finally cracked. She spent my college money? Yes. On what? On him? On his business. The look of betrayal on Emma's face was heartbreaking. She'd always been closer to her mother, always defended Dalia when I criticized her spending or questioned her priorities. Now she was learning that her mother had stolen her future to fund a fantasy. How much? She asked. $40,000. Emma put her head in her hands. That was everything. That was 4 years of tuition. I know. I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? You didn't do anything wrong. I should have been paying closer attention to the accounts. I should have protected you better. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. What am I supposed to do now? We'll figure it out. Student loans, scholarships, grants. You're smart enough to get academic aid. We'll make it work. I hate her, Emma said quietly. No, you don't. Yes, I do. She stole my future for some guy. She destroyed our family for some guy. How am I supposed to forgive that? I didn't have an answer for that question. Forgiveness was a luxury I couldn't afford right now, and I wasn't going to lecture my daughter about something I couldn't do myself. You don't have to forgive her, I said. You just have to decide who you want to be in spite of what she did. Emma wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I want to be nothing like her. Good, that's a start. That evening, I made dinner for just the two of us. Spaghetti and meatballs, Emma's favorite comfort food. We ate in relative silence, both of us adjusting to the new reality of our reduced family. Dad? Emma said as we were cleaning up. Yeah? Are you going to date other people? The question caught me off guard. I haven't thought about it. You should. You deserve to be happy. I'm not ready for that yet. When you are, I want you to find someone who appreciates you. Someone who wouldn't steal from us. Deal. She hugged me then, the first real hug we'd shared in months, maybe years. It occurred to me that Dalia's betrayal had cost us a lot of things, but it had also given us something back. Each other. The next morning brought a phone call from Janet Morrison, the forensic accountant. I've got more information about the money trail, she said. Your wife was more careful than I initially thought. How so? The transfers to her sister's account were legitimate. Her sister was aware of the arrangement and was compensated for her participation. She received $500 for each transfer. So her sister was in on it. Definitely. I've got copies of their text messages coordinating the timing of each transaction. This was worse than I'd thought. It wasn't just Dalia acting alone in a moment of weakness. It was a conspiracy involving her family, a deliberate plan to defraud me while maintaining plausible deniability. What else do you have? Credit card statements showing hotel charges, restaurant bills, gifts purchased for Zane Merrinor, all paid for with joint credit cards. The total comes to about $60,000, not $40,000. $60,000. Emma's entire college fund plus our vacation savings plus the emergency fund I'd insisted we maintain for the gym. Can we recover it? We can try, but he's spent most of it on his failing business. Unless he has other assets, you might be looking at a lengthy collection process. What about her sister? She's got about $1,500 in her account. Not much to recover there. I hung up feeling sick. Not just angry anymore, but physically ill at the scope of the deception. This wasn't a simple affair. It was organized theft, planned and executed over months with the help of Dalia's family. My phone rang again, Chloe this time. We've got a problem, she said. What kind of problem? Dalia hired Marcus Weinstein. I knew the name. Weinstein was the most aggressive divorce attorney in the city, known for turning simple dissolutions into scorched earth battles that lasted for years. She's fighting the divorce? She's fighting everything. Custody, asset division, the financial recovery claim. She filed a counter-petition this morning claiming you've been financially abusive and emotionally manipulative. That's ridiculous. It doesn't matter if it's ridiculous. It matters if she can make it stick. She's claiming you controlled all the finances, that she had no access to money for personal expenses, that the transfers were her attempt to establish financial independence. I can prove that's not true. Can you? Do you have documentation showing she had equal access to all accounts? Do you have records of her personal spending? Can you prove she wasn't financially isolated? I thought about our financial arrangements. I'd handled most of the bills and investments, but only because I was better with numbers, and she'd always claimed to hate dealing with money. She'd had access to everything, credit cards, checking accounts, savings accounts, but I couldn't prove she'd used that access for legitimate purposes because I'd trusted her not to abuse it. This is going to get ugly, Chloe said. How ugly? Months of depositions, financial discovery, character witnesses, psychological evaluations. She's going to try to paint you as a controlling husband who drove her to seek emotional support elsewhere. What about the evidence of her affair? She's not denying the affair. She's claiming it was justified by your behavior. In her version of events, she's the victim of an abusive marriage who found solace with an old friend. I felt the walls closing in around me. Somehow, Dalia had managed to turn herself from perpetrator to victim, from thief to survivor. and now I was going to have to prove my innocence instead of her guilt. What do you recommend? We fight back, we document everything, we prepare for a long battle, and we hope the judge sees through her performance. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house and tried to understand how my life had changed so completely in just 2 days. 48 hours ago, I'd been a married man with a stable family and a secure future. Now I was facing a contentious divorce, potential bankruptcy, and the possibility of losing custody of my daughter, but I wasn't backing down. Not from Dalia, not from her attorney, not from anyone who thought they could steal from my family and then claim victim status when they got caught. This was war now, and I'd been training for war my entire professional life. Marcus Weinstein looked exactly like what he was, a predator in an expensive suit. He sat across from me in the conference room of his downtown law firm, his silver hair perfectly styled, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. Beside him, Dalia looked smaller than I remembered, playing the role of wounded victim with practiced precision. Mr. Trevan, Weinstein began, my client is prepared to be reasonable about this dissolution, but she has some concerns about your recent behavior. My recent behavior? The ambush at your home, the hidden cameras, the threats against Mr. Merrinor. She's feeling quite intimidated. I looked at Dalia, who refused to meet my eyes. Intimidated by what? By being caught stealing? Alleged stealing, Weinstein corrected. My client maintains that all financial transactions were made with full knowledge and consent. Chloe opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Full knowledge and consent? Mr. Trevan's signature appears on none of the transfer authorizations. He was deliberately excluded from these transactions. My client had equal access to all marital accounts. She was entitled to use those funds as she saw fit. For personal expenses, perhaps. Not to fund her boyfriend's failing business, Weinstein smiled. Mr. Merrinor is a longtime friend who needed temporary assistance during a difficult period. My client chose to help him as an act of friendship. $40,000 of friendship, I said, plus another $20,000 in credit card charges. That's expensive friendship. My client was not aware of the full extent of her spending. She was under considerable emotional distress due to her husband's controlling behavior. Chloe leaned forward. What controlling behavior? Mr. Trevan managed all household finances, made all major decisions without consultation, and created an atmosphere of emotional isolation that drove my client to seek support elsewhere. I almost laughed. Emotional isolation? I worked 60 hours a week to build a business that would support our family. I handled the finances because she claimed to hate math and said she trusted me to manage our money responsibly. Trust that you violated by spying on her communications and setting elaborate traps. After discovering months of deception and theft, Weinstein pulled out his own folder. We have documentation of my client's emotional state during this period, text messages to friends describing feelings of loneliness and neglect, journal entries detailing her husband's increasing distance and criticism. Journal entries that were probably written after she got caught. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Trevan. Chloe intervened before I could respond. What exactly does your client want? 50% of all marital assets, including the business. Spousal support of $3,000 per month for 5 years. Primary custody of Emma with supervised visitation for Mr. Trevan. Supervised visitation? I stood up so fast my chair rolled backward. Are you insane? My client has concerns about Mr. Trevan's mental state and his potential for vindictive behavior. Based on what? Based on his elaborate scheme to entrap and humiliate her. Based on his threats against Mr. Merrinor. Based on his pattern of controlling and manipulative behavior. Chloe put a hand on my arm, signaling me to sit down and stay quiet. Your client committed adultery and stole $60,000 from marital accounts. She has no grounds for primary custody or spousal support. Alleged adultery. Alleged theft. And even if both were true, they don't negate 15 years of marriage or my client's right to financial security. What about Emma's right to financial security? What about her college fund that your client stole? My client made some poor financial decisions during a period of emotional distress. She's prepared to make restitution for any legitimate losses. $60,000 plus interest. We dispute that amount, and we maintain that my client's emotional suffering entitles her to significant compensation. The meeting went on for 2 more hours, each side staking out positions that were miles apart. By the end, it was clear that we were heading for a protracted court battle that would cost more in legal fees than the marriage was worth. Walking to the parking garage afterward, Chloe was blunt in her assessment. She's good, she said. Better than I expected. She's reframed the entire narrative from cheating wife to abused victim. Can she make it stick? Depends on the judge. Family court judges see a lot of ugly divorces. They're used to competing victim narratives. What about the evidence? The financial evidence is solid. The affair evidence is solid. But she's not denying either one. She's claiming justification, and that's harder to disprove. So what do? We build our own narrative. We show that you were a devoted husband and father who worked hard to provide for his family. We show that she was a calculating deceiver who planned and executed a systematic theft of marital assets. How? Character witnesses, financial experts, timeline analysis. We prove that her story doesn't match the facts. That evening, I sat down with Emma to explain what was happening. Mom wants primary custody, I told her. What does that mean? It means you'd live with her most of the time. I'd get visitation rights. Emma's reaction was immediate and fierce. No, absolutely not. It's not up to us. The court will decide what's in your best interests. My best interests? She stole my college money. She destroyed our family. How is living with her in my best interests? The court doesn't see it that way. They see a mother who made some mistakes but still loves her daughter. Some mistakes? Dad, she's been lying to us for months. She's been stealing from us for months. She chose her boyfriend over her family. I know, but her attorney is going to argue that I drove her to it. Emma stared at me in disbelief. How? By being controlling, by being emotionally distant, by creating an atmosphere that forced her to seek support elsewhere. That's garbage, and you know it. Yes, but can I prove it's garbage? Can I prove that I wasn't controlling or distant? Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking. What about me? What about you? I can testify. I can tell them what really happened in this house. Emma, I don't want you to have to choose between your parents in court. I'm not choosing between my parents. I'm choosing between my father and a liar. She's still your mother. No, she's not. Not anymore. Mothers don't steal from their children. Mothers don't destroy their families for some loser boyfriend. The pain in Emma's voice broke my heart. At 17, she was old enough to understand what had happened, but young enough to be devastated by it. Dalia's betrayal hadn't just cost us money, it had cost Emma her childhood innocence and her faith in the one person who was supposed to protect her unconditionally. If you testify, her attorney will try to tear you apart, I warned. He'll make you out to be a confused teenager who's been manipulated by her father. Let him try. I know what I saw. I know what really happened here. What did you see? I saw you working 18-hour days to build the gym. I saw you coming home exhausted but still helping me with homework. I saw you planning family vacations we couldn't afford because you wanted us to be happy. She paused, gathering her thoughts. And I saw her, always on her phone, always making excuses to go out, always complaining about money while spending it on clothes and salon appointments and lunches with friends. You never said anything. I thought it was normal. I thought all marriages were like that. They're not. I know that now. The next morning brought another call from Janet Morrison. I've been digging deeper into the financial records, she said. Your wife's deception goes back further than we thought. How much further? 2 years. Small amounts at first, then increasing over time. The total theft is closer to $80,000. I sat down heavily in my office chair. 80,000? She was very careful, never enough at once to trigger automatic reporting, always with plausible explanations. Home repairs, medical expenses, family emergencies. But it all went to the same place. To him. To him, and to maintaining the lifestyle she needed to keep him interested. Expensive hotels, designer clothes, jewelry. She was essentially funding her own affair with your money. Can you document all of this? I already have, but there's something else you need to know. What? She's been planning to leave you for over a year. I found evidence of apartment hunting, job applications in other cities, even consultations with divorce attorneys. She was planning to disappear? She was planning to disappear with as much of your money as she could steal. The only reason she got caught is that you found her phone unlocked that night. If you hadn't discovered the affair, she would have cleaned out your accounts and vanished. I thought about all the times over the past year when Dalia had seemed distant or preoccupied. All the times she'd claimed to be working late or meeting friends. All the times she'd reassured me that everything was fine when I'd sensed something was wrong. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd been systematically planning my destruction while smiling and kissing me goodbye every morning. There's more, Janet continued. Her sister wasn't just helping with the money transfers. She was helping with the exit strategy. I found text messages discussing how to hide assets, how to establish residency in another state, how to make it look like you were the one who abandoned the marriage. They were going to frame me? They were going to make it look like you left her for another woman, leaving her with no choice but to take the children and start over somewhere else. Children? We only have one child. She's pregnant, Mr. Trevan. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? 3 months along. I found the medical records in her email account. Is it mine? Based on the timing, probably not. But she could claim it is, and you'd have to prove otherwise. I hung up the phone and stared out the window of my office, watching cars pass by on the street below. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that my world had just collapsed completely. Dalia was pregnant with another man's child, and she was going to claim it was mine. She was going to use an innocent baby as a weapon in her war against me, and there was nothing I could do to stop her. I called Chloe immediately. We need to meet, I said. Now. What happened? She's pregnant. Silence on the other end of the line. Chloe? I'll be right there. An hour later, Chloe sat across from my desk with the forensic accountant's report spread out in front of her. This changes everything, she said. How? Pregnant women get special consideration in custody cases. Judges are reluctant to separate expectant mothers from their other children. Even when the mother is a thief? Even then, the court's primary concern is the welfare of the children, all of them. What if I can prove the baby isn't mine? Paternity testing during pregnancy is risky. Most judges won't order it unless there's compelling evidence of adultery. We have compelling evidence of adultery. We have evidence of an affair. That doesn't necessarily mean the child isn't yours. The timing? The timing is close enough that any decent attorney could argue either way. I felt trapped, outmaneuvered by a woman I'd trusted completely, who had planned my destruction with methodical precision while I'd been working to build our future. What do you recommend? We fight. We present all the evidence. We let the judge decide, but you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that you could lose everything. Including Emma? Including Emma. That night, I sat in my empty house and tried to figure out how to tell my 17-year-old daughter that her mother was pregnant with another man's child and that we might lose our custody battle because of it. But when Emma came home from school, she already knew. Madison's mom saw Mom at the doctor's office, she said without preamble. She's pregnant, isn't she? Yes. Is it yours? Probably not. Emma sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands. This just keeps getting worse. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. It's not your fault. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected you better. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Dad, you can't protect people from their own mothers. I can try. What happens now? We fight. We tell the truth. We hope the judge sees through her lies. What if the judge doesn't? Then we figure out our next move. What if there is no next move? I didn't have an answer for that. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was facing the possibility of complete defeat. Not just divorce, not just financial ruin, but the loss of my daughter and the destruction of everything I'd worked to build. But I wasn't giving up. Not yet. Emma, I said, no matter what happens in court, no matter what your mother does or says, I want you to remember something. What? I love you. I've always loved you, and I will never stop fighting for you. She hugged me then, and I held her tight, knowing that it might be one of the last times I could do so without a court-appointed supervisor watching our every move. The war was far from over, but I was running out of ammunition, and my enemy had just revealed a weapon I hadn't known existed. 3 weeks before the custody hearing, I made a decision that would either save my family or destroy what was left of it. I was going to expose everything, not just to the court, but to everyone who had been deceived by Dalia's carefully constructed lies. The plan came to me during a sleepless night spent reviewing financial records and legal documents. Dalia had spent months building a false narrative about our marriage, painting herself as the victim of an abusive husband. She'd convinced her family, her friends, and now her attorney that I was the villain in this story. But narratives could be changed, reputations could be rebuilt, and sometimes the truth was more powerful than the most skillful legal maneuvering. I started with social media. Emma helped me create accounts on all the major platforms. She was a digital native, fluent in the language of hashtags and viral content in ways that my generation struggled to understand. Are you sure about this, Dad? She asked as we uploaded the first batch of evidence. Once this goes online, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. People need to know who she really is. We started with the financial records, screenshots of bank transfers, credit card statements, the forensic accountant's report. Everything documented and time-stamped, showing the systematic theft of family assets over a 2-year period. Then came the text messages between Dalia and Zane, carefully edited to remove the most explicit content but preserving the evidence of their long-term affair and financial arrangement. Finally, we posted the audio recording from the night I'd confronted them both in our living room. Dalia's own words, admitting to the affair and the theft, captured in high-definition digital clarity. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the posts had been shared thousands of times. Local news outlets picked up the story. Dalia's employer received copies of the evidence. Zane's restaurant was flooded with negative reviews and boycott threats. But the real impact came from people who knew us personally. Neighbors, friends, parents from Emma's school. The carefully constructed image of our perfect suburban marriage crumbled in real time as people realized they'd been deceived for years. Dalia called me that evening, her voice shaking with rage. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed. "How could you humiliate me like this?" "I didn't humiliate you," I said calmly. "I just told the truth. You humiliated yourself. You've destroyed my reputation. You've destroyed my career. You destroyed our family. You destroyed our daughter's future. You destroyed 15 years of marriage for a man who can't even pay his own bills. I'm pregnant, Asher. I'm carrying a child. How could you expose me when I'm vulnerable?" "Whose child are you carrying, Dalia?" Silence. "Whose child?" I repeated. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me. It matters to Emma. It matters to the court that's going to decide custody of my daughter." "Our daughter." "My daughter. You forfeited your right to claim her when you chose to steal from her college fund." Dalia hung up, but the damage was done. Her admission that the paternity of her unborn child didn't matter was recorded on my phone and uploaded to the cloud within minutes. The next morning brought a call from Marcus Weinstein. "Mr. Trevan, what you've done is unconscionable. You've violated my client's privacy and subjected her to public humiliation during a vulnerable time. I've told the truth about her behavior. If that's humiliating, maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to steal from her family. We're filing for an emergency restraining order. You're to have no contact with my client and no access to social media accounts containing information about her. Good luck with that. Everything I posted is a matter of public record now. Court documents, financial statements, recorded conversations, all legally obtained and legally distributed. You're destroying an innocent woman's life. I'm protecting my daughter from a woman who's already proven she'll steal from her own child. This isn't over." "You're right, it's not." The restraining order was denied. The judge ruled that while my social media campaign was aggressive and potentially harmful, it contained no threats of violence and consisted entirely of factual information that would be presented in court anyway. But the real victory came from an unexpected source: Emma's testimony. At 17, she was old enough to express a preference about custody arrangements. But more than that, she was old enough to understand the full scope of what her mother had done and articulate it in ways that cut through all the legal maneuvering and victim narratives. "My mother stole my college fund," she told the judge. "She stole it to give money to her boyfriend so he could keep his failing restaurant open for a few more months." "Emma," Weinstein interrupted, "your mother was going through a difficult time. Sometimes people make poor decisions when they're emotionally distressed." "Poor decisions?" Emma's voice was steady but fierce. "She made dozens of decisions over 2 years. She had to actively deceive my father, actively deceive me, actively plan each theft. That's not emotional distress. That's calculated betrayal." "Your father has been very angry about the divorce. It's possible his anger has influenced your perception of events." "My father has been angry about being robbed. Any reasonable person would be angry about being robbed." "Emma, your mother loves you very much." "No, she doesn't. People who love you don't steal from you. People who love you don't destroy your family for someone else." "What about the baby? Your mother is going to have another child who will need your support." Emma looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I'm 17 years old. In 8 months, I'll be 18 and legally an adult. I don't need the court to protect me from my father. I need the court to protect me from my mother." The judge asked Emma to explain what she meant. "My father has spent my entire life working to provide for our family. He built a business from nothing so we could have security. He saved money for my education so I could have opportunities he never had." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My mother spent 2 years secretly stealing that security, stealing those opportunities, stealing our future. She gave our money to a man who used it to subsidize his failed business while telling us we couldn't afford a family vacation." "Emma, relationships are complicated. Sometimes marriages fail despite everyone's best efforts." "This marriage didn't fail, Your Honor. It was sabotaged by a woman who decided her personal happiness was more important than her family's financial security." Weinstein tried to redirect. "Emma, you're clearly very angry with your mother right now, but anger fades. Family bonds are permanent." "You're right. Family bonds are permanent. That's why what she did is so unforgivable. She didn't just betray her husband, she betrayed her child. She stole from her own daughter to fund her affair. What if your mother could pay back the money? With what? She doesn't have $80,000. Her boyfriend doesn't have $80,000. His restaurant is failing, just like my father predicted it would. Emma turned back to the judge. Your Honor, my mother is asking for primary custody of me while she's pregnant with another man's child. She's asking you to force me to live with a woman who stole my college fund to support her affair. She's asking you to ignore 2 years of systematic deception and theft because she claims to be the victim. What would you like the court to do, Emma? I'd like the court to let me live with the parent who didn't steal from me. I'd like the court to hold my mother accountable for her choices. And I'd like the court to understand that being a victim of your own bad decisions doesn't make you a victim. The hearing lasted 3 more hours, but Emma's testimony was the turning point. When the judge announced his decision 2 weeks later, it was everything we had hoped for. Primary custody to me, supervised visitation for Dalia, full restitution of stolen funds with wage garnishment if necessary, no spousal support. But the real victory was simpler than any legal ruling. Emma came home from school that day and found me in the kitchen, reading the judge's written decision for the 3rd time. Dad, she said, I'm proud of you. For what? For fighting back, for not letting her get away with it, for showing me that sometimes you have to stand up to people you love when they're wrong. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. I hugged my daughter and realized that despite everything we'd lost, money, security, the illusion of a happy marriage, we'd gained something more valuable. We'd gained the truth, and the truth, however painful, was something we could build a future on. Dalia moved to another city before her baby was born. She never paid back the money she stole, and we never expected her to. The restaurant closed 3 months after the custody hearing. Zane disappeared shortly after that, leaving behind a trail of unpaid debts and broken promises. Emma got into college on academic scholarships and student loans. She studied business and finance, determined to never be financially vulnerable the way her mother had made our family vulnerable. As for me, I kept running the gym, teaching kids to fight back against bullies, to stand up for themselves, to never give up even when the odds were stacked against them. Because sometimes the most important battles aren't fought in rings or courtrooms. Sometimes they're fought at kitchen tables, in empty houses, by people who refuse to let thieves and liars rewrite the story of their lives. Sometimes the most important victories aren't about winning. They're about refusing to lose. And sometimes, when everything else has been taken from you, the truth is the only weapon you have left. But it's enough. It's always enough.